Good morning, everyone. Hello, and welcome to our cineSync with FTrack webinar. For those of you who don't know, my name is Mattias Seebergs. I'm FTrack's Regional Sales Manager for EMEA, and we're super excited to talk to you about cineSync today. We'll run through what is cineSync, who uses cineSync, real-time remote sync integrations and security, and more. Webinar should last around 45 minutes with a Q&A panel at the end. So please save your questions to the end, but do send them in through the Q&A button and we'll cover them at the end. So yeah, before we jump into the webinar, I'd like to introduce my colleagues who will be running the webinar: Rory McGregor, Neil Wilson, who are the creators of cineSync, and Mattias Seebergs, sales engineer based in Stockholm. Guys, over to you.
Thanks, Vitaly. So yes, I'm Rory. I'm the General Manager at FTrack Australia, and we also manage cineSync product out of the office here in Adelaide. And Neil, who's in the background of this call and is helping run things from behind the scenes, is the technical product manager for cineSync and for review across the FTrack suite. And Mattias is helping us today as well as one of the technical specialists in the Swedish office and who works as a sales engineer. And we're going to be talking about how cineSync works in your general workflow and how it can integrate with various different tools, including with FTrack. So in terms of what we're going to run through today, we are going to look at cineSync from kind of the basic level and work our way up. We assume that most people who are in this call are familiar with cineSync and what it does, but as a quick summary before we start, cineSync is an installed application that you can install on Mac, Windows, or Linux, and it allows you to play video in sync with anyone, anywhere in the world. So it's a little like screen sharing, except unlike screen sharing, we can do it in absolute quality, full high resolution, full frame rate, regardless of bandwidth. The way we do that is that there's essentially a copy of the media on each machine that's in the review. And cineSync synchronizes those different copies together, and it makes sure that everyone is looking at the same frame of the same video at the same time. So you can be reviewing 4K, 120 frames a second video in each location, no matter what your connection speed. And because we're only transferring sync information back and forth, you're going to have high quality playback and maintain sync with everyone else in the review. So it's a very simple but powerful tool for synchronized remote review and approval, particularly on work that needs a high level of quality and fidelity. So some of the features we're talking about today in cineSync include just the basics of cineSync and how it works. We'll run through cineSync Pro and how that integrates with the with some of the other tools that we work with, including FTrack, how we move the files around for reviews, and how we do that securely while still keeping it as simple as possible for guests in the review. And we'll talk a bit about some of the features that are upcoming, some of the things that we're doing in conjunction with FTrack, and also some, we'll kind of look at some of the less well-known features of cineSync, and some of the things that you may not have found. Even if you're a power user, there are things that you know are kind of squirreled away in the background that it can be very useful that you might not know about. So to get started, it's probably just having a look at cineSync at its core, and what it really, the promise of what it does. So Mattias, you might be able to chime in here, but you know, there's a lot of work that gets done in the visual effects industry, and you know, animation and games, and any really industry that has a requirement for people interacting with content. And Mattias, from the project management side, obviously knows that there's a lot of data that we have to deal with. So cineSync's one of the tools that's used to manage all that. But yeah, in terms of the way the industry works, Mattias, would you agree that that clear approval process is kind of fundamental to the way that it all works?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, and that is also why we offer review tools with FTrack as well as built-in tools, right? Because it's so important in that process. Yeah.
Yeah, and we should mention, I mean, FTrack does have its own review tools internally within the browser. And what cineSync does is it allows us to review media that can't be reviewed in a browser. It basically is an extension that allows us to review higher quality, higher frame rate. And when you get into cineSync Pro, it does things like being able to, review color changes or look at things in a proper color space. So it's, a very kind of a powerful extension of the FTrack review suite. So to have a look at this, I'm going to get Neil to share his screen at his end so that we can actually have a look at cineSync in action. All right. So here we're looking at cineSync. We're going to start with the basic version of cineSync and work our way up. So, and this is how cineSync starts. So we start in a blank session, and the first thing we have to do is log in. So we log in just with username and password. This creates a session on the cineSync sync server, and the sync server is what enables us to be able to interact with other people. So the session key that is generated there is what we can supply to our guests. And then when guests log in, rather than needing their own account, they just log in using that session key. So the advantage of the session key is it identifies the session, so it gets the guest into the correct session, but it also means that it's a session key that's one use only. It can't be used any other time. So it's also a relatively secure way of getting guests in without them. It's not just an account. It's a one per use session key. It's thrown away at the end of the review. So once they're in the review, then we can add the media. Now, in this case, the guest and the host already have the media at each end. We'll get into how we move files around later, but in many cases, facilities will be able to just share files between themselves anyway. They'll have a way of synchronizing their files across, or a way of being able to share files via Dropbox or similar. So once we have the files in the review, then we can have a synchronized review. So anything that anyone does, whether the guest or the host hits play, it'll play for both ends. If the host was to jump to a certain frame, it'll jump to the same frame for the guest as well. And it's really simple and interactive. So we don't have like just one presenter who can do everything. We actually allow the guest and the host to fully interact with each other, and we can have as many guests in this review as you like. So we can have larger accounts with people who are running 30 or 40 people in a review. Not all of them drawing at the same time or playing at the same time, but they're all able to see what's going on. The host does have a couple of extra controls. The host can disable the guest controls. So there is an ability to set essentially a presentation mode by turning off guests' ability to control or guests' ability to draw. So that can be useful in large group situations. And also we're finding more and more with students. So when lecturers are talking to students, they like to be able to just present and not have the students be interacting on their own. So obviously we can add annotations at both ends, and because anything the guest does is seen by the host and vice versa, it means the host has a complete record of all of the notes that are created. And we can save all those out at the end of a review. So yeah, Neil's just showing a couple of the functions are here. So we've got sticky notes, we've got we've got arrows, we've got circles, you know, sort of a few pre-built functions that allow us to do different things. We can link an arrow to a note like that so that you can move things around. You can make sure it's still pointing to the same thing. One of the little tricks that not everyone knows about with the arrows is you can also modify them as you create them. So let's say if we go to a clean frame, and yes, so we can, there's I think it's the option key you can use to draw arrows through people's heads. That was a special request from a VFX supervisor a number of years ago. It was his condition of buying the product that he was able to draw arrows through people's heads, and he happily did that in every VFX review from then on. Yeah, at the end of a review, once we've made all our drawings you know, we're happy that we've had the discussion that we need to have, we can save all these frames out. So we can either save just the current frame, or we can save all the frames in a playlist. We can save them out as a PNGs into a folder on our machine, or we can export it as a PDF. So the PDF will export all the frames as images with the annotations attached. If we've added any text notes, then the text notes will also appear in this PDF. So it's a really quick and easy way of making a summary that you can then send around to everyone in the review. So at its basic level, this is what cineSync does, and the basic version of cineSync allows us to yeah, have a synchronized review, have people interact, draw, you know, point things out on the screen, and export that at the end of the review. So if we wanted to take that a step further and really kind of, rather than just using cineSync as a standalone tool by itself, we would move up to cineSync Pro, and that is the I'm going to share my screen again. So cineSync Pro is really the next evolution in cineSync. So it's not just a way of adding extra features, but it's a way of actually integrating it into your entire workflow. So cineSync integrates really closely into tools like FTrack and also into tools like Shotgun and NIM. We're going to show you the integration with FTrack today because we have Mattias here to help us with that as well. Yeah, everything we're showing you that is working with FTrack will also work with Shotgun and with NIM. And we'll also look at how we integrate with other things like some of the file transfer tools and as a way of being able to move files around. So before we get too heavily into the way that this all works and the integrations, I thought I might give Mattias a chance to have a quick discussion about FTrack and what that does and why it's necessary for us to integrate with FTrack the way that we do.
Yes, thanks, Rory. As most of you probably already know, or many of you, FTrack Studio is all about project planning and scheduling, production tracking, version management, and of course media review, as we've seen so far today. I mean, the latter quite recently improved with browser-based sync functionality earlier this year. So basically what you have seen or the course of it, what you've seen Rory demo on this webinar is also possible inside FTrack, the synced reviews functionality. Also FTrack Studio supports remote workflows on cloud workspaces, integrates also with your favorite apps out of the box through our desktop app Connect, which is included in the FTrack subscription, and I would say it makes it all pipeline ready. You can see a few of the softwares that we provide an integration with on this slide, and a full list is available on our website. Also, FTrack Studio comes with a powerful API, both a Python-based and a JavaScript-based. If you would like to create web widgets inside FTrack, that's also possible. And I mean, this will let you tightly integrate it into your pipeline. Yeah, to say something about security, Rory has already been talking about it a bit, but I mean, security is another important topic we take very seriously. Of course, FTrack Studio offers a granular roles and permission system, but we also offer a way to run it on premise, all of it basically, if required. So yeah, that's basically it, what FTrack Studio is.
Yeah, so obviously FTrack Studio then, Mattias, you know, it allows facilities to manage, you know, a huge number of assets, to track iterations on those assets. And each of those iterations comes with a review process. So you can either do those reviews inside the browser in FTrack, or if you are needing to look at you know, content that's not playable in a browser, whether it's really high resolution, whether it's high frame rate, whether it's a frame sequence, or if it's functionality that might not be available in a browser, like color management or some of the other tools that cineSync has, that's when you'd go out to cineSync via the integration with cineSync Pro, do the review, and then export everything back into FTrack so that you can continue to track it in that platform. And as mentioned before, that's something that's also available with other integrations we have with Shotgun and NIM, but we're going to show this with FTrack today. So Neil, you might as well take control back, and we'll have a look on your screen as to how we're progressing from here. Cool. All right, so if we were to start well, so we're back to a clean session here, where we've got the host and the guest in a review, but in this case, the guest doesn't have the files available to them. So, and this happens quite a lot, and it's you know, you'll have you know, producers or directors who are in a hotel room who are moving, who don't have access to a facility, don't have access to the media. You know, how do you make content available to them simply so that they can run it locally, so they're still having a very high quality playback in their review, but without requiring them to go off and work out how to run a Spera or an FTP system and get the files in themselves. So one of the ways that we can do that is via our integration with FTrack. So if we go to the integrations menu, this allows the host to browse the FTrack instance. So this is the host's version of FTrack. It's password protected. You have to log in with the host's own FTrack ID. This isn't held within cineSync. This is actually looking at directly into the host's version of FTrack. But it's basically a cut down version of FTrack. So it's just showing the stuff that's relevant to review, which in this case is projects. And then within projects, we have versions and reviews and lists. With versions is a complete collection of all the versions that are available. Lists, you know, various lists that are being created of those versions, and reviews, essentially reviews that have been built to be added into either into cineSync or to be reviewed in FTrack. But they're essentially reviews and lists are just containers that contain versions. So in any of those lists, we can open up and we can look at the versions that are available. And we can see some information about each of those files, but if we were opened up further, we can actually see all the historical information about that file. So if there have been notes made previously and saved in FTrack, we will see those previous notes. And so we basically have a full record of what's in here. And we're also querying the FTrack database live here. So we're seeing stuff that's current. If things are being updated in the background, when we go back, we'll see them updated. It's not, you don't have to log out and log back in again to see what's here. So as you're always looking at the most current version of what's available. So if we want to add any of this content to the review, we can simply hit add to session. And we can go back to the list and we can add a couple other files from the list as well. And because we're adding these from FTrack and because we know the location of those files, that information is also propagated to the guests. So the guests are pulling the files directly from our FTrack instance as well. And once the files are downloaded, they're pulled into sync with the host. So the guest hasn't had to do anything. They've been able to essentially pull a file from an FTrack link into their review, have it all sync up. The host can start showing them what they want to talk about without the guest having to interact with it at all. So if the guests are less confident with technology, this is a really nice way of being able to get them into a review and to make the files available to them for review while still running really high quality media. So, screen sharing has its place, but if you're working where quality is required and you want to guarantee that people are seeing the same thing at the same time, then having the files available locally means that you are not having any delays because of bandwidth in the same way that you could have with streaming or with screen sharing options. So as we go through, we can make text comments, notes. We can make the drawings. We all have the same drawing tools that are available in basic cineSync. Obviously the guests can interact as well and add their own drawings. And so yes, there's a number of different tools within this interface as well that we have access to in Pro that we don't in the basic version. So there are things like color is a really useful one. So if the host was to want to, if there's this discussion, you say, look, this scene looks too cold. I want to make it look warmer. Even though this movie is called it's called Spring, so we want to see it look like spring. So you can make an adjustment. And if you try to say to someone, I want to make it redder, they're like, well, what does that mean? I can say, well, like this. And you can easily audition a color change. And when these frames get exported out to FTrack, we'll have that color change included. But it's a really easy way of being able to communicate what is a fairly complex idea in a very visual way. So yeah, we can play with brightness, we can play with saturation, gamma, hue. So the hue wheel is interesting, or the hue slider is interesting because it can be used for sort of selecting colors for things in particular. So I know Marvel have talked about the fact that they use the hue wheel to select hero colors for characters, because every Marvel character has to have their own color. So if they have, lightning coming out of their fingers, or if they, create some kind of effect with the hue slider, again, they can go through and have this conversation with producers, directors, studio heads, and say, what do you think of this color or this color? And they'll see that update at both ends. So it's again a very quick way of being able to make a live conversation and a live decision while everyone's seeing the update in front of them, using a very simple process. We've also, as of 4.2, released an integration with OCIO. So OCIO is Open Color IO. It's the new Hollywood, Academy Software Foundation standard for basically translating LUTs and looks in images. So if you wanted to add an OCIO config file to this review, we can add that in. And then there we can define all of our input colors, output colors, based on the looks, and based on what display we're using in a very kind of comprehensive fashion. So it means that we can guarantee that the files that we're looking at, we're actually seeing in the correct color space. We're seeing it in the film color space, or we're seeing it for, graded for TV, or, again, we're talking about the same thing. And what we're looking at is what we expect, and any changes we make are seen at both ends, because that's really the fundamental promise of cineSync, is that everyone is seeing the same thing at the same time. So any change that we make is propagated around. But something like OCIO config files are not an easy thing to manage, but for the guest, they don't need to do anything, because this is all run from the host's end. what else have we got in here? So other functionality that exists in cineSync Pro includes masking. So this is a way of really quickly being able to preview various masks. So you can see how it's going to look in 16:9 versus a full film frame. Or you can test out various crops. We can look at sort of title safe areas or subtitle safe areas. And again, it's a really quick visual way of being able to represent changes on screen and have everyone see what we're talking about. We have so we can reframe that as we go. We have a simple zoom tool that allows us to zoom in on parts of the image, and when we're working with much higher resolution files or really high resolution stills, being able to zoom in and look at specific areas is important. And again, that's synchronized across the review. We can either flip or flop the image to see how that looks in a really quick preview. So apparently the entire opening sequence of Gravity was displayed the way that it was because it was actually flipped during a review process, and they liked it, so they kept it. And that defined the first 18 minutes of that film. It's amazing the power that the review process can have in enabling that creative conversation, allowing people to test things out. So that's the reason that tool's in there. We have a compare mode. So if we've got a couple of different files that are in here that we want to see side by side, generally you'd be doing this if you had two versions of the same file, be able to compare them, but in this case they're different shots. But yeah, it allows us to run them side by side and see the difference between the two in a really simple fashion. And any notes we make on those files is saved back to the correct versions in FTrack when we export them back. What else we got? Yes, thank you, Neil. So we can also play files in a sequence. So, and this is actually, I'll get to this a bit later on when we get to upcoming development, but as it stands at the moment, we're able to play these files end to end in the same timeline. So we can see sort of quick assembly edits, and we can even edit like handles on things. So we can we can make sure that if there are title slates on there, or if a clip's running too long, we can actually do quick little edits on these clips on the way through. Manage our in and out points on them, and we can vary those and update those live. It also means that if we wanted to swap in a different version or change the order of the sequence, that we can do that as well. And all of these things will be translated to the other end. So it's not intended to be a live edit as such, but it is about showing quick context cuts and being able to see the shot before and the shot after, or multiple shots in a row, and see your shots in context, in sequence with the guest as well, and be able to preview those things neatly. In addition to file sequences, we can also play frame sequences. I'm not going to make demonstrate a frame sequence in a streaming session because it won't look great. But believe us when we say that the frame playback is also very smooth. But it actually goes to show why having local playback is superior to streaming or screen sharing, because you will get a frame sequence playing back at full speed, 60 frames a second. And you'll see every frame. Whereas if you're trying to stream it, you'll see 1 frame a second and a very blocky playback. So it's another reason why why cineSync focuses on local playback over streaming. And for those of you that are still excited about 3D, we are also able to view files in stereo mode. So we haven't got a stereo file in this review at the moment, but it enables us to set whatever mode a file that's in there. So if we're using a standard anaglyph red, green, we can do that. If we're looking at a side-by-side or checkerboard, interlaced, then we can do that too. And we can also check our output. So for each end of the review, whatever output device they're outputting to, they can modify this so it works correctly. So going back a few years, we had a lot of customers who were using this for doing 3D conversions and reviewing that with the conversion houses that were going. It was originally built for Avatar, the 3D stuff that's in here now. So of course it's seen a bit of a comeback recently with the new Avatar movies, and yeah, we're hoping that that 3D comes back as well. It's a fun experience, but I'm not sure that I'm not sure if the world hasn't moved on a bit. But yeah, if anyone is using 3D or needs it, it's in here as well. And again, it's another function that you can't run in a browser, but you can run in a local application. So at the end of this review, having done all of these, all these notes, drawings, color changes, masking, all the various different visual experiments that we've been doing, we can export all these notes back into FTrack. So the export process gives us the ability to preview what we're pushing back. So we can see our text notes, we can see the drawings that we've done, we can see we can edit any of these notes on the way through as well. So if there's content that we needed to add, or if there's frames that are irrelevant, we can take those out. You can change spelling mistakes, you can clean up notes, you can add things that you forgot during the review. And we can either publish all of this as a new note, or we can merge it with existing notes in FTrack. So from time to time, there'll be notes taken directly into FTrack, and we just want to attach the save frames to that. So we'll get a preview of what that's going to look like when it gets merged. Or we can just publish it back as a existing note. It's probably worth noting at this point that this functionality works actually particularly well with Shotgun, who have a dedicated notes app, and often people in Shotgun land like using the notes app in Shotgun alongside the drawings in cineSync, and this is a neat way of merging them for Shotgun as well. With FTrack, we can set the status of this shot as well. So if it has moved from a work in progress to approved, or to any of the other statuses that have been set in your FTrack instance, then we can make those changes on the way through as well. And so when we push these back to FTrack, that status update will push through as well. When we export it back to FTrack, it's quite a quick process. It basically just batches all the frames up. It will connect the correct frames to the correct versions in FTrack. And if we were to open FTrack, you'll see all those new frames have been attached in the notes section. So there's the new notes and the new frames that we've added in this review. So it's yeah, it's really simple. It's a really simple way of being able to pull files from FTrack, make all our comments on it, and send it back to FTrack so that it's all recorded in one place and it's all recorded back against the correct version. But it's all using tools that that aren't available in the browser natively. So it's just an extension of that review process. So obviously the question that we get quite a bit as we go through this is how we do this securely. Because if you're sending files or pulling files from FTrack and they go into someone else's file system, like how do you control that process? So in this case, what we have done on this instance is we have set in preferences for all our files to be encrypted. So under the integrations menu, you can see in preferences here, you have the ability to encrypt all files as they are sent to the guest. And included in that process as well is the ability for files to be automatically deleted from the guest system at the end of the review. So while they exist on their file system, they're labeled with a generic alphanumeric string. They're not labeled Star Wars 1 or anything that's identifiable. And even if someone wants to find it on their file system during the review and they tried to open it, they'll find that it won't open with any other application. So it's a fully encrypted file that can't be opened. And in fact, it can't even be run in cineSync unless the guest is with the host in this review. So essentially the host's session key forms part of the encryption key for this content. So while the review is happening, this is decrypted into memory. And so it's still playing back locally off their system, but the original file remains encrypted on disk for the duration. So again, this all happens without the guest being aware of this process happening. So at the end of the review, when the host closes the review, it will close for the guest as well. And as the guest leaves the review, the files will be automatically deleted off their machine, and you'll see them go from the file system here. So it's a really clean way of ensuring that everyone in the review is able to access their content. That the files are made available to everyone in the review, but in such a way that the files are encrypted in transit, they're encrypted at rest on the target disk at the end, and they are deleted at the end of the review, all without any interaction required from the guest. So it's completely managed by the host, and none of that content goes through our service, and none of that touches cineSync. So it's being pulled directly from, in this case, FTrack, directly to the guest with no third party in between. It's not going through an external server. It's not going through us. It's a direct connection from FTrack to the guest and then deleted from the file system of the guest at the end. So it's a really powerful, simple, but very secure solution. If you don't have FTrack, Shotgun, NIM, or any other cool tools that we work with, you can also move files around in reviews using SFTP, for instance. If you have your own SFTP server, you can set that up. We have recently added the ability to use an S3 bucket. So if you have set up an S3 bucket on Amazon, you can use that as a file transfer location. So when guests join, they pull files directly from your S3 bucket. It doesn't, again, it's not something we control. We just allow the cineSync client to connect to it, push files up to it. When files are pushed to S3, they're sent up encrypted. They're encrypted in transfer. They're encrypted at rest on Amazon. They're sent via secure encrypted transfer to the guest, and they're encrypted at rest on the guest's disk as well, if you choose to set that. And you can also auto delete the remote copy at the end of the review. So the same secure workflow exists as well without going through a project tracking system. So if you're just using cineSync as a standalone tool, it's another way of being able to move files. So yeah, S3, FTP. We have an integration with Aspera, you can see down there as well. So there's a lot of different options for various tools. So yeah, that's setting up for a Aspera Fastspec account. So we have a number of facilities that are using that too. Fastspec is a little more work to set up. It can be a bit more customizable, but once that's working, that's obviously very powerful. Aspera is a very fast way of moving files. But from the guest's end, they don't ever know what they're using. They don't have to set anything up. They don't have to, depending on permissions, they may have to enter a password to be able to pull the files in, but they don't have to know what's being used or how the files are being pushed to them. So it's quite transparent from their point of view. It just, the files turn up, they're pushed into the session, and they're available and in sync, you know, from the get-go. So that's really the majority of how cineSync and cineSync Pro work currently. It's I think probably worth talking a little bit about some of the stuff that we're doing at the moment and some of the development that we're doing upcoming over the next few months. Matthias already mentioned some of the things that are happening in FTrack in terms of review in the FTrack platform. We are looking at kind of integrating cineSync even more closely with FTrack. We're still absolutely keeping cineSync separate as a standalone tool. It will still fully integrate with the partners that we already have, the shotguns, the NIMS, and the other sort of third-party applications that we work with. But we're going to be also leveraging the broad infrastructure of FTrack to be able to do really build a hub around review and approval, whether that's in a browser, whether that's on a mobile device, whether that's using cineSync for the really kind of powerful, secure review, using very high quality media. And more and more looking at doing that internally within a facility as well. So one of the features we're working on at the moment is integrating OTIO, which is the again, the Academy Software Foundation standard for EDL support, and being able to translate different EDLs via OTIO. So we're going to be able to support that in cineSync. So we'll be able to load EDLs directly into cineSync and have those play, and again, and also go through to the guest end so that the guests are seeing assemblies. And within FTrack, we want to be able to support EDLs as well. So we'll be able to move that data around, be able to pull up sequences and see context cuts live, really simply. And I think that the one of the big aims over time is FTrack as a platform is keen to, with cineSync, with review, with all of our other review tools that we have, to essentially, if you want to look at some media, we will supply the right player for you automatically. Like it just will make the files available. You don't have to choose what you're using. You don't have to work out, oh, I need to do this in cineSync, or I need to do this in review, or I need to do this somewhere other way. It will just play. And that's really our long-term aim, is to make review and approval simple, to make it really accessible, to make it accessible at every point in the process. So from pre-production through to delivery, if you need to be able to look at something and share it with someone, we want to be able to enable that at all points during the process, and to be able to do that regardless of what device you're viewing on and what content you need to see. So that's that's really where we're heading with cineSync overall, and that's pretty much the end of our run through today. So I think from here we can. I should have a quick call out to the fact that we've got some more webinars that will be upcoming next year to talk more about the evolution of FTrack, of cineSync, and of our other tools. Yeah, I think if we have any questions that have come through, we should go through those now as well. So Vitaly, have we got any questions that have come up?
Someone just told me they have a question, but they haven't posted just yet.
Okay. We had a question that came in via email before, and we did cover it briefly in the run through. But there was a question about using cineSync without FTrack, and yes, of course, we absolutely can do it. So I think this was a question again about using Shotgun and being a Shotgun facility. So everything we've shown you that we did with FTrack now is available with Shotgun as well. So if you're a Shotgun user, cineSync supports all the same functionality and will continue to do so in the future. We've got a really good relationship with the Shotgun team as well, and we will continue to maintain that process. So yes, and the file transfers work the same way with Shotgun as well. So being able to pull files in from using it that way.
Fantastic. The questions are pouring in. So Arkady asks, there are 3 or 4 different playback and review tools in FTrack. 1, the web player with different annotations tool in the main interface and review sessions, which has a number of limitations, but will better connect to FTrack itself naturally. RV player, which we also do integrate with, which is excellent sequence playback, QC, or annotations. And then cineSync, which is the industry standard for online review sessions. Do you plan to make something combined, or one? Do you plan to make like one player that's going to be the be all and end all?
We would love to, and I think the aim is to, if not to do it in practice, to make it work as if it's working that way. So I think that there are always going to be limitations in a browser as to what you can do. There are always going to be restrictions in file size, speed, whatever, file formats. So having an application is a useful way of doing it. But we want to bring those tools as close together as we can. So that's what I was mentioning at the end there. We want to make it not feel like you're using multiple tools, that you're using one tool, which is FTrack, and that it's, cineSync is underpinning one section or review is underpinning another section, but it's essentially working all together. Yeah, and I mean, even though RV isn't one of our tools, RV is an important part of that process as well, because RV obviously is a very powerful internal review player. It's an excellent frame player, so it's really my role with FTrack overall is across the whole of review, and it's about bringing all those tools together in a way that is really useful, really accessible, and not feeling fragmented, and to make sure that everything that we do in those tools is recorded in FTrack, so that you have a complete record of your review and all the comments and all the feedback at the end, so you're not losing anything.
Fantastic. So there's no plans to mesh cineSync and FTrack?
It's going to get closer together, but there's no plans to combine cineSync and FTrack. So we're not ever going to end up in a position where, to buy cineSync, you have to buy FTrack and vice versa. We're going to continue to operate them, offer them separately. We're going to continue to offer them in such a way that they can be used with other platforms, but we're not, but we are going to, within FTrack, make them work together as closely as we can.
Fantastic.
So best of both worlds.
Arkady says, thank you very much for such a detailed answer.
Cool.
Cool. I don't think we have any more questions. Well, not on my side.
Okay. Well, if there are any more questions that come up, or if anyone has any thoughts as we, if they thought about it later, you're very welcome to contact us at any time. So contact us through the FTrack website. We pretty much whatever contacts sheet you use to get to us, it'll come to all of us eventually. So please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to answer questions. We're happy to do live kind of one-on-one discussions with people as well. If you have specific questions about your workflow and finding ways of being able to use our tools to make your life easier, let us know. And we can get really in-depth. Neil, as our kind of technical resource, he thoroughly enjoys those conversations of getting into the real nitty gritty of managing firewalls, of using cineSync from behind an air gap facility, or how do we get a file to a director on a yacht in the Mediterranean. These are all like things that we deal with on a regular basis, and we're very keen to help.
I've seen it all before, so happy to oblige.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Right, well,
thank you very
yeah.
much. Thank you very much, Rory, Mattias, and Neil. Thank you, everyone who stuck with us through the webinar. And if you're watching the recording, thank you as well. As always, we'll be putting up more webinars in 2021. Keep an eye on ftrack.com/webinars. If you want to influence the webinars and kind of, you know, influence what we talk about next, or if you have a topic that you'd really like us to explore on one of these, please do email us in, do send us your feedback. And yeah, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. Goodbye.